Here's a phrase you hear a lot. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Now, this is a phrase I disagree with, but first of all, I want to be devil's advocate and describe what it means. What it means is that if there is something which is an intrusion into your private life in some way, or is perceived in that way, then the only situation where that would be a problem would be the one in which you are actually doing something wrong. So, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Now, this is wrong for two reasons. The first reason is that it assumes that the law is the same as morality and that the government shares your values. If the government shares your values and the law is the same as morality, that would suggest that any intrusion, any scrutiny of what you're doing is fine, because you would not need to defend yourself and you would automatically not be doing anything that the government disagrees with. But it doesn't follow that the government is always right. The law changes all the time, and it can change back again sometimes, and it clearly does not reflect actual morality. It merely reflects what the government needs doing, or what it thinks it needs doing, or what its research suggests needs doing. Often very inefficient research, incidentally. And that is not the same as morality. So that's the first problem with the statement, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. The second problem is that it assumes that whatever authorities are placing you under scrutiny are absolutely fine and work perfectly, have no drawbacks, have no mistakes in them, basically that they are perfectly working, finely, carefully oiled machines of the state which don't have any imperfect human beings in them. And therefore, that any exercise of authority or power by those bodies will automatically be okay, because it will work perfectly and it will never make mistakes. It's a little bit like the argument against the death penalty that says that you cannot have the death penalty because a pardon is impossible. In a similar way, the situation where there is scrutiny of what people are doing in private and would rather the government didn't know about assumes that there is never going to be a mistake. It's a bit like, another one is the nuclear deterrent situation. If you believe the nuclear deterrent works, it doesn't follow that you think that there should be computers running that nuclear deterrent which are liable to make mistakes because of garbage in, garbage out. So, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear, doesn't really work at all. And it doesn't work for those two reasons. It doesn't work because it assumes that your values and the government values, and possibly the values of any private company that the government has contracted the scrutiny out to, are working perfectly. And secondly, it assumes that the values are shared. I've got that the wrong way around, sorry about that. And that the government is automatically right. And it doesn't follow that the government is automatically right, because all of these things are run by human beings. Now, this is not a left or a right-wing point, by the way. This is more a point about trust of authority. Now, some people might say trust of authority is a right-wing idea, but that doesn't really follow either, because libertarian right-wingers would actually say the government should have as little authority as possible. And on the left, obviously, there are people who trust the people more. And therefore, I'm not really making a political point here, at least not in terms of right and left. I'm making a point that says that if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear, reflects lazy thinking and doesn't work.